Welcome everyone to the GOB Club for Undercard by David Albertyn.
Yes, this is our second of the series of book club episodes where we invite our listeners to talk directly to the author.
And today's author, like we said, is David Albertyn. He's born in Durban, South Africa. He immigrated to Toronto, Canada when he was young after witnessing the realities of apartheid firsthand. At Queen's University, while pursuing a film studies major, he enrolled in his creative writing courses, and then he went on to the Humber School for Writers' Creative Writing, where he received a letter of distinction. Writing is certainly David's first passion, but sports is a pretty close second. His day job since graduating university has been as a tennis coach, a profession he's grown to love. Undercard, which is right here, if everyone's watching us on YouTube, everybody's got it. It was released in Canada in February, almost a year ago, of 2019, or 2 years ago almost, right, David?
Getting
Year and a half or whatever.
Year and a half, yeah.
Months, whatever. it's all a blur now, right? But it was released in the US in June of 2020, and it was right away included in Crime Read's list of the 8 debut novels you should read this June, and they were right. So David, we're so happy you're here with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy, and it was such a pleasure meeting you both at Thriller Fest in 2019 . So yeah, it's really great to see you again.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun time. I remember those days when everybody was in the same room without a mask. And it was a while back. Yeah, well, this is going to be a lot of fun today too. I hope.
Oh yeah, if I want to watch movies and stuff, from the past, and people are like hugging and stuff, and you're like, what's?
You're like, stop! No, you can't do that. Yeah. So first off, I guess, before we even get into the discussion of the book, we're going to have to discuss what food and wine we feel goes with this book.
Christy, before we even do that, let's have everybody introduce themselves.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do that.
Okay, so
that would be smart.
Amber, you want to get us started?
Yep. My name is Amber Michael. I'm a kindergarten teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina, and most importantly, I'm an avid reader. So I was thrilled when I accepted this invitation to come on here with y'all. I can't wait to discuss this book. I loved it. I actually read it in 24 hours. I kind of saw that it was 24 hours time-based, and so I love to do things like that, just kind of put myself into the same time frame. So I did it in 24 hours, and it was awesome. I loved it.
Oh, wow.
Great.
I mean, that's awesome. I always had an idea that would be like a fun challenge, like try and read it.
Yeah.
According to the time. So wow.
Yep.
Thanks. That's really awesome. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
And Gordon?
Hi, my name is Gordon Vatch. I'm retired, and I've enjoyed the book immensely. I didn't read it in 24 hours. I think I read it more like in maybe 72 hours, putting it down so often. And to find out you're a Canadian, which made it good because I'm an ex-Canadian, originally from Montreal, and I've been in the States many years. But the book was fabulous. I really enjoyed it. The characters were amazing, and I can't wait to pass it on to. I really should tell them to go buy it, shouldn't I? Yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have them all go buy it. But it really was fabulous, and I'm really very honored to meet you today. So.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Both of you. Thank you, Amber and Gordon. That's very nice to hear.
Yes, we're happy you're here. Thanks.
So, David, we chose, and now to the most important part, the wine. We chose a wine inspired by your book, which was kind of tricky because there wasn't a lot of drinking in there, but there was a scene where a character was drinking some pretty decent alcohol.
Whiskey.
Some whiskey. And so we found
bourbon or something.
Yeah, bourbon barrel aged Cabernet. And so we thought that'd be perfect.
Yes.
And so that's what we're drinking. And so for those of you who are trying it, I'll read you the tasting notes and see what you think. I know Amber's
I have it,
you have it
here.
Amber's having a nice white, I saw.
I am. Yep. A Moscato.
A kosher Merlot, you said.
And I've got a Merlot. Yeah.
So this Beringer Brother, though, is a The tasting notes is a wine bursting with aromas of ripe blackberries, roasted hazelnuts, and caramel. It has an intense concentration bolstered by Petit Verdot. This full-bodied wine has a creamy mouth feel with ripe tannins and integrated acidity. The lingering notes boast of coconut, violet, and black cherry.
That's exactly what I tasted.
All of it.
Tastes good. Does it taste good?
I don't know where the bourbon is, but anyway, that was inspired by David's book.
It is really kind of good. And I think it does have sort of a liquor kind of bourbon kick to it, sort of. I don't know. Don't you think, Cathi?
Yes. It's very nice. It's a very nice wine. I wouldn't drink it and think I'm drinking bourbon by any means, but I'm not a big bourbon drinker, so.
Right. Right. They did drink a lot of what were they called?
The dark and stormy.
Yeah. What's a dark and
Yes.
stormy? I should have
I've
looked that
never
up.
had a dark. Have you ever
I
had
don't
one? Dave?
remember. I think I can't remember what it is. I think I drank it once and I liked it.
It's going in the book.
I think the money liked it. Yeah. I didn't do that. I did a lot of research for the book. That one aspect, but it does exist. It is a drink.
Okay.
Yeah, I have drunk it in the past. Yeah.
So David, if I walked into a bar and asked for dark and stormy, they know what I'm talking about.
I think so.
I think so. I can look it up right now if you want.
No. That's okay. That's okay.
It's something. Yeah, it's something. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that it sounded interesting anyway. And so for the food, again, we didn't have what was I going to say? We didn't have a lot of meals that took place either. I mean, this is, a fast moving
So
book.
fast paced, they didn't eat, but except for the beginning, there was
They had a barbecue. So then we said, okay, let's have some barbecue sliders.
That's good.
So that's what we chose. And that would be a good thing for a book club, because
You were
could
to
just
get
do a little
together.
sandwich. And chips. I got my chips.
That's good. That's good.
Because I have to have chips.
That's funny. One of the things I wanted was by the end, you felt like these people were just so exhausted. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Period, and like they had eaten and slept. So yeah, not that much to work with eating, but good.
We found a way, David.
They found a way. Yeah. So anyway, so we found a way too. So we've got our food, we've got our wine, and now we're ready to discuss.
Okay, good. And I've just got some fancy Perrier today.
Oh, okay. I figure you'd jump in if you had wine there.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, good.
We didn't ask because we didn't want to put you
I
on
made
the
a
spot or
fancy
anything.
kind of cheese board.
Oh,
very
nice.
Ooh.
I'm coming over. Wow.
That looks delicious.
Oh, man.
That's my favorite meal. Is a little cheese.
I know.
plate.
That's great. Oh, wow. I guess
That's Canadian hospitality for you.
it would
That's
take us
right,
24
yeah.
hours to get there, but yeah, I know. That's what I told Gordon. I was like, David's very nice, and so are you, Gordon. I guess it must be that Canadian thing. But now, Amber, you're nice too. Don't worry.
That's in Montreal. They're very nice. Montreal. Toronto doesn't have as good of a reputation in Canada as the rest of.
Oh, really?
Well, it's like America. Everyone, sort of New York kind of pisses off the rest of America.
Oh, right.
It's always the big city, Calgary and Alberta. Everyone in Alberta hates Calgary.
Oh, really?
I lived in Dallas. I'm sorry, in Dallas, Texas for a little bit. Everyone in Texas hates Dallas. Everyone in South Africa hates Johannesburg. Like it's just always the biggest city.
Yes.
That's funny.
Mhm.
We don't have any of those in South Dakota, but I imagine that would be what it would be. All right. Well, should we
Okay.
get going on some questions?
Yeah, let's do. All
Let's
right.
do it. Okay, so David, we're going to start with Amber. She came up with this great list of questions, but she's going to start us off with one.
Yeah. Okay. What's your background with boxing, and what is the meaning behind Undercard, the title?
Right. Okay. Great question. Okay. I shouldn't have eaten right at that moment, but
Yeah, sorry.
no, don't worry. So basically, my dad liked boxing, I mean, my dad's into, played a lot of sports, So one of them was boxing. So even as a kid in South Africa, I remember watching some big fights. The big heavyweight fights. It was sort of Holyfield and Riddick Bowe. I remember that fight, like after Tyson got to prison. My first memory was post that period. And then, so I was always a fan. And then when we moved to Canada, one of the first things we did, my dad bought a boxing bag, or a heavy bag, one of the big punching bags, put in the garage. So I punched that when I was a kid. And then sometimes I would do little bits of, I had gloves, so I'd organize sort of like, we would do little boxing matches in friends' basements. When I was a kid, we wouldn't hit the head, we'd just hit the body, but still. So
Yeah.
fun. And then, I remained a fan. And then I did some for tennis, just for cross training. I wanted to do some boxing, so I did some boxing training for that. But then also I ended up talking to my sister. I was explaining to her just the business of boxing is like the wackiest kind of pro sport in a way, even more than I'd say like UFC. There's like an umbrella kind of organization, but boxing, it's wild. Like if a management team, if one fighter's management doesn't like the management of the other fighter, they won't fight. Like if they can't come to an agreement. Like, I mean, so you imagine like, say, like the Super Bowl, like the two, the AFC and NFC champions don't play because their agents don't like each other, but that's what boxing is like. Right? And then another thing, boxing is different fighters assigned to different like TV stations, so HBO doesn't do boxing anymore, but some fighters assigned to the HBO, some assigned to Showtime, some assigned to ESPN, or their management teams assigned to that. Now DAZN is streaming, sports streaming, some signed to that. So for instance, Mayweather-Pacquiao, one of the reasons it took so long for the fight to come about is Pacquiao was signed to HBO, Mayweather was signed to Showtime. So if they fought, those networks had to decide how they divvy up the money, how they recorded everything. So it wasn't just a negotiation between the fighters, but between two cable channels. So, I mean, can you imagine like Nadal and Federer not playing because
just
stations don't? So, I mean, it's kind of and then there's different organizations. So there's different belts, so there's no like one main champion. So the whole thing's like so fascinating. And I was telling this to my sister, and she said, you should write a book about boxing. Like, you're so interested in that, even though that aspect of it doesn't really make it into the book, ironically. And then I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But then, it sort of was already there. And then when I was creating the story, I really thought all the characters were going to be athletes. I didn't know boxing would be featured, but then once I picked Vegas, it just all kind of came together. It was just so many ideas. So and then undercard is the term for the opening bouts in all combat sports. So wrestling, MMA, boxing, you call the undercard. And that's because, if my research is correct, in the old days, they would have an actual card, that they would draw, that they would write like the fights on, and hold it up. And there would be the main card with the main event or the two main fights. And then they'd have a card underneath with all the lead-in fights. That's why they called it the undercard. Who's fighting on the undercard? So that's where the term originated. And apparently someone even told me that it's even used sometimes for concerts, for the opening band. So someone's called the undercard.
Oh, interesting.
So it's so it seemed a perfect title for me because it's not like so obscure. It's a very evocative word, but it's not that well known. So it just kind of, I felt it was just right. Yeah.
So you named the book Undercard, and it stuck. I mean, your publisher didn't want to change it or anything. That's pretty unusual.
No, fortunately, yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's it was funny because I was thinking I need a title. I was thinking of these very cliche titles like Prize Fighter or Fight Night or things like that. But I knew they were just way too cliche and like been done so much. And I thought, what's something that like says this guy's an undercard fighter, and then these are people who are almost there, but they're not, that they're undercard, they're not main event. I'm like, if only there was a word. let's sum that all up, and then eventually it clicked,
Only there was a word.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
Awesome.
Okay, so I have a question. So, did your childhood in South Africa, viewing the realities of apartheid firsthand, have an impact on choosing to write about race relations in Undercard?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably not as directly, maybe. So. Basically, I always wanted to sort of deal with kind of I don't know, substantive issues, I guess you could say, in my writing, but within the context of very exciting kind of dynamic storytelling. So and then I had 2 unpublished books before this one that I really worked hard at, and in a way, Undercard kind of took a lot from both those, but in the one. But definitely, yeah, like my father was involved in the anti-apartheid struggle. So definitely it was something very much growing. And all my parents' friends were very much involved in things like that. And there was a thing came out in the Truth Commission, which is when they went over, like it was sort of like a healing process where they went over all the things the terrible things that had been done during apartheid just to after it ended. And came down a list of like sort of enemies that are sort of seen as political enemies of the state, of the apartheid government. And my dad was on it, and all the presidents, Mandela was locked up, but all the presidents other than Mandela was, even the one currently, were on it, and a lot of my dad's friends were on it. It's kind of wild, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a very kind of, it's funny because, when people think like white South Africans, obviously it's associated with that, but my parents' friends, when I grew up, they were far more progressive than, when we came to, I mean, there's a very progressive group, even though they were white. So I was around that as a child, and then when I came here, so it was just always kind of an idea that, that you should be looking to, make sure that this isn't an unequal society, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Right.
That I learned very young.
Right.
But then I'd say in my research for that, my first unpublished book, I was reading a lot about the sort of criminal justice and policing, basically, in South Africa and in Cape Town in particular. And one of the things that's interesting, I think, about what's going on in America and really in the West in general, over the past 5 years or so, is that, like, there might not be a precedent for it in, say, America or in the West, but there's a precedent for it in sort of global South countries, global South states. So a lot of things happening, they've already been happening in other places. It's just kind of, the West is sort of catching up. So I'd done all this research, and for the first one, I did a lot of research into South Africa, Kenya, and Congo. And it very much is, as sort of the Black Lives Matter movement started, it's very much reminiscent of, and the policing. And what's interesting is a lot of the way in which it's policed there in places like Cape Town, they learn from the US. US exports a lot of their policies and methods and techniques. So they're trained actually, at conferences, there's world policing conferences, things like that. So it was kind of interesting. So a lot of that sort of hard policing, it's very similar. You know what I mean? Even though obviously in Africa, there's a whole other aspect to it that isn't, in the West or in North America, things like that. But anyway, so I definitely wanted to write about that stuff. And then, yeah, sorry, this is a long way, but it did kind of grow, right? It sort of came about quite organically. This was in it, and then I just thought of making Tyron's parents activists when I was building the characters. I wanted his parents to be activists, and then I had this idea already, and then the Black Lives Matter movement sprang up.
I know, that's amazing.
Tyron's whole central personal tension would be, does he follow in his parents' footsteps, or does he just kind of live his own life? And then this, incredible activist movement emerges, and I just thought I had to include it. So it was kind of really came together, and then I did a lot of research on that in America specifically in regards to that issue. But so it really came about over a long period of time. So.
Right, and then now look at the world now. I mean, it's like so You wrote it a few years ago, but now it's like such in the forefront. It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's kind of amazing how it all
I
kind of,
know.
It's some
powerful
weird
proceeding.
predictions, it seems like.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just studying,
So,
I'm sure, but yeah.
sorry, Kathy. So I was going to say, so now we have a question from Gordon.
Yes, sounds good.
Yes, David, we see a strong loyalty between this group of friends. They go through a series of traumatic events, but keep this loyalty to what they were when they were young. Where did you get this idea, and do you have a similar group of friends in your life?
Well, interesting question. That's very good. Yeah, I'd say, well, firstly, again, it's actually, that's another thread that sort of I got from my first unpublished work, was I sort of touched on that, of this, these two friends who were very close and went through a lot of like, very, high stress, sort of dangerous experiences. And then that there was some kind of tensions between them. But I didn't really go into it far enough, I felt. And I just thought that was a really interesting kind of dynamic to focus on. So that was my original idea, to focus on that, of really people who had been close and now, it's some serious tensions. And now my idea was that everyone, their personal goal would conflict with each other's personal goal.
Right.
So it's kind of like trying to weave that together. So
Did a good job of that.
oh, thank you. Yeah, and I didn't know how they were gonna navigate it. I just wanted to kind of put the ingredients in and then see where it went. So, and then, yeah, I'd say, I got some friends from way back. I've sort of, like I said, I've spent quite a lot of time in the States. I live in South Africa, lived in Canada, moved around a bit. So I've had sort of friends from all over, and sports, writing, coaching, like lots of different airways. So yeah, I guess, you have a lot of relationships. You kind of draw some of them, things like that.
Right.
Well, I don't want to.
You should get them all. You should get them all together. It'd be very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think that's not a good precedent.
Right.
Doesn't bode well. Yeah.
All right, Amber,
Okay.
you want to ask a question?
Yes, Undercard moves really quickly, which I read it the same amount of time that the book takes. But what made you want to do that time frame? What made you want to do 24 hours?
Yeah, well, great question. Yeah, so again, like I was so happy with Undercard. I had like a million ideas like my whole life. Like I've been writing stories since I was a child, and I always, and a lot of ideas lingered with me, throughout. And one of them was I love stories that take place in 24 hours. Like I always loved it in books and film, and I always wanted to try it. And then when I realized like the two set pieces of the story were going to be this fight and this protest, and fights are generally Saturday night and protests are generally in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, generally on Sunday morning, but I figured I could have a fight and then a protest, and then I could do it over noon to noon as opposed to midnight to midnight. But so as soon as I saw I had the opportunity, I'm like, you gotta go for it. And so together, I was really happy.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
All right. So yeah, Gordon, you have another question?
Yes. The way you left your characters in the novel, one in particular, but we won't give that away, makes me wonder about a sequel. Is there one in the works, young man?
Not currently. I got some ideas, maybe one day, but I'm working on sort of a very different sort of standalone novel right now. But I was thinking if it becomes a TV show, then there's some room.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I
could see that.
After the first season to, do their own thing.
Do you have it? Is it optioned for a TV show?
Yeah, it's option actually, and it's moved several steps along. They got some funding for the screenwriter to write the script, so I feel like it's like maybe one step away. Although who knows if it gets to that step? But I mean, it's gone many steps. There's like 2 production teams attached. So anyway, hopefully, yeah. But,
oh, that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Hey, David, a question for you. So who would play Antoine in a movie?
Good question. Yeah. So I'll start by saying I don't think I'll have any say in it.
Right.
Sometimes when you read these writers, they're like picking directors, they're picking this, that. I'm like, well, I don't know how they got in that position, but
Right.
but I think Antwoord would be cool if it's like an unknown actor for him, and maybe you have everyone else kind of more famous than him, sort of the unknown. I think that would kind of go with his character. Like you'd never seen that actor before, and then it could be a career launch.
There you go. So maybe one of those producers is listening, and they'll.
We have ideas about casting. Just saying.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so David, my question is, I have a few levels of my questions. It's a little multifaceted. But I'm wondering what has been the best part of writing Undercard and getting it published and getting to the point where you're at, and what's been the most challenging?
Well, that's a really good question.
You better fill your mouth before you answer it.
I suppose, probably the best is just like now, like, just knowing that you are published now. And you kind of like, you've had this goal for a very long time. You've been working for so long. Just to realize that, I think is probably the best. There's been so many cool things that have happened. This is cool. I love doing all this stuff, but I think just like, yeah, just having a goal, really your entire life, right? And then having it that was really special. And it also gave me a huge amount of confidence that, because it was a long time and I got rejected a lot. And like I said, too, and I really tried hard. It's not like it was half-hearted attempts. And so it just gives you a lot of confidence that sort of anything you put your mind to and put a lot of effort in, you will succeed. You know what I mean? No matter how long it takes or whatever the setback. So I'd say that's probably the best, even though there's been a lot of just like really cool experiences, you know what I mean? And then the most challenging, I'd say, I don't know, it's kind of, there's been a lot of challenging things. One thing right before the book came out, or a couple of months, my publisher took me to an event, an author event, and there was a German writer, and they had the rights to her book in Canada. So anyway, I met her, she was very nice, and she had, several books and was doing well. And she said, before the launch, you're going to be so nervous and stressed out, like things can go wrong, but like, nothing really can go wrong. So, like just don't worry. Not to spook anyone, but a million things can go wrong. I guess that also, a lot of people don't get a second book or I think that maybe the realization of that, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like there's this feeling like, okay, I made it now. I guess my first part of the onset, you have this feeling like I made it now, I'm in, I'm in. And then you realize, like some people, they don't get a second book, or if they get a second, they don't get a third, or maybe they end up going with a smaller publisher, or, it just doesn't go the way they hope. And
there's nothing guaranteed, right?
Yeah, there's nothing guaranteed, exactly. And it's not like it's necessarily just this upwards trajectory now. And to sell books is tough. To promote is tough. Especially when there's a pandemic.
I know, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like the way I see it is like to get published is like climbing a mountain, and then once you're published, it's like to be a successful, financially successful, or just, stable, you know what I mean, to ensure that you have a career as a writer. It's like climbing another mountain, so I suppose that's what's hard.
Right.
David, this has been so fun to talk to you. I just want to ask Amber if she'll ask the other question she had for you about what writers, we didn't get.
Yes. Who inspires you? Like, who is your favorite writer, or what made you want to become a writer?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great question. Yeah. Well, I'll say my mom, this is the easy answer, but my mom, she showed me when I was 6 years old, she showed me stories of her writing when she was 5 years old. Like she found some old stories that she wrote in a notebook and she showed them to me. And I was like, you mean I could have been writing stories the last year and no one told me? Such a weird reaction. Basically, I started writing ever since then. And but like my family, you know, my parents didn't really censor me and my sister much in terms of movies and things like that, and books. Like they showed me Jaws when I was 5 years old, and we lived in a city on the ocean where there were shark attacks. Every weekend. So I had like a phobia of the ocean and water. Everything was like swimming in Durban, and so I was terrified of the ocean for a long time. And I mean, I still swam. That was, they should have censored me there.
Yeah.
So it was very much I always wanted to. But then in terms of books, I loved Tolkien as a kid. I loved Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. That was big. And then when I moved to Canada, kids introduced me to Michael Crichton. So for that sort of fast-paced kind of thriller feel, Crichton was, you know, I'd say, even though he's sci-fi, I wanted to have sort of more kind of, yeah, maybe social issues, you know, the way he's got sort of tech and science issues, but then that real, that, you know, he does, you know, how I did like the timestamps.
Yeah.
Chapter sort of correlates to the hour of the day. He did that very much. Like he obviously had a lot of fun, and he did a lot of care with how he set up his chapters and his scenes, you know, and they're different in different novels. And I love that part of his writing, you know, like that he played with this sort of format of it. So that was a huge influence. And then, yeah, I mean, many since then, but I'd say those two kind of sort of really developed my desire to write sort of entertaining, adventurous stuff. Yeah.
Great. Well, this
I can't
was
wait to tell
definitely.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go
Go ahead, Amber.
Oh, sorry. I said I can't wait to tell my kindergartners that. Like, I teach 5 and 6 year olds, so to tell them that an author I talked to was inspired when he was 5 and 6, like that's really cool. I can't wait to share them with that.
Oh, that's
them.
perfect.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
I'm glad.
So you're telling David
That's
he got
awesome.
an A on his answer?
Yes. And I'm also reading The Lord of the Rings right now, so that's so funny that you said that as well. That's
Wow,
yeah.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so
A
much.
plus.
Such a blast. We can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
I know. And we'll put all the links up on our website about any of the food and wine and
And where to get the book?
where to get the
Thank
book.
you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
knowing it's probably coming to a screen near you.
yeah. And David's website is really, you know, you can go on his website and see all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
You get to tell them what the website is.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so it's my name, davidalbertyn.com. You know, just
We were going to see how you pronounced it. We were going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I felt like, how do I pronounce it now?
It was a 10.
Albertyn.com. Should I spell it? No, it'll be
on our
they'll know how to-
show
yeah,
notes.
Take a
with the-
picture of it. We'll put it all over the
yeah,
place.
exactly. Yeah, but thanks so much. It's just wonderful to meet you, Gordon and Amber. Thank you for reading it and for being here. It was
Hey,
wonderful.
pleasure. Hey, listen,
Thank
do you say A very often?
I'm not sure. You want to know something? Can I tell a quick story? Funny story. I was in New York City way back. I just finished university, and I was with some friends there. And one of my buddies went to Columbia, so we were hanging out with him, and we went to a comedy club. And I was talking, and then there was some guys. I think they were Swedish or something. They were Scandinavian, you know, tourists. And then they said, "Are you guys Canadian?" And we said, "Yeah, but I got a South African accent, you know, somewhat South African accent."
Right.
And then they said to me, "Are you guys Canadian?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how could you tell?" And he said, "Because you say A." I was like, "Oh."
So apparently he does.
Yeah.
You know, I can't seem to get rid of the house out and about. You know, no matter what I do, it's there. I mean, I've been in the States since 1965, and it's as soon as I say that, "Oh, you're from Canada," I say, "Yeah, I'm from Canada."
Wow.
even though I now say "huh" instead of "a," but the house and about, it'll always be with me.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's funny.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think all we have left is A toast to
A
David
toast.
and Undercard and Amber and Gordon. Thanks, you guys. Cheers.
Hey, our pleasure.
Cheers.
David, good luck.
Thank
Good luck at all
you.
you do, David.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. And lovely to see you,
Thanks.
Christine and Cathi. Thanks so much for having me. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
David.
it.
Thanks.